I am Minefiend and welcome to my video. On the right hand side of your screen you will see my house, which I built in episode 1 of this series, and then over on the left hand side of the screen you will see Skullgate Prison. That's a surface skeleton spawner that was built in episode 2. Now let's get on with episode 3. I started off just in a cave at the back of Skullgate Prison, hunting for some iron. I desperately needed to replace all the iron that I'd used on the hoppers and the bars and everything. So I was taking the opportunity to use the Fortune 3 pickaxe and get any iron that I could when I came across this zombie dungeon. It was not much of a problem. It was down a dead end, but I needed every bit of iron I could get. And then when I looked in the chests, not really much. A name tag, and I've got quite a few of those from fishing. But in this one we got a music disc, cat. Always nice to get music discs to add to the collection. But the trip itself was very profitable. I got an awful lot of copper, and I got enough iron to keep me going for a little while. Now just take note of all the landscape here as I head over to Skullgate Prison. We come across a small beach and up the rise onto the first sort of plateau area of the lands where I'm going to be building the town. Just want you to have a good look at it while we're going across. I'm going to Skullgate Prison because I've decided to embrace enchanting. It's something I don't really normally do. You use it in the very early game, but then as soon as you get villagers, enchanting becomes pointless because you can buy and trade for much better items and the items you want rather than the randomish items from enchanting. But in this, I've been really using the enchanting. I've enchanted every tool, stone tools particularly, and that may sound silly, but when you've got a XP farm like this, it costs you nothing but lapis, and lapis with a fortune pick is, I was making more lapis than I could spend, so it was really worth it, and it helped me a lot to enchant stone tools. Something amazing. Now as I head back to Starter Island here again, just again take one more look at the landscape here. This is where I intended to build the town. This sort of level here is the lower town because I want it to come down to a harbour. It's going to be a big harbour wall, there's going to be docks for ships, and the main sort of town area will be here. But here it comes down, if you look down into the very lowest part, sea level, where there's the small beach, and then there's the river here that runs around the back of Spawn Island. Oh, not Spawn Island, Starter Island. And I've got plans for this place too. There will be a bridge across to here, and there will be something quite unusual going on this island, but that's for a while away in the future yet. As I've been living off fishing, I've been continually upgrading my rod, getting it better and better every time, and here I add mending rod onto it that I'd caught. But I want to show you this next clip because it's rather surprising. I was fishing during the night in a rainstorm because I wanted to catch lots of fish. And look to the right hand side of the screen, watch the right hand side of the screen, and you'll see what happens in a moment. There, a lightning strike and a skeleton horse appears, and it immediately sinks. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, what? It's out in the water, and it's there. You can see it sink down. So I didn't know what to do, so I watched it and I watched it for ages, and then eventually after catching another name tag, I thought, I'm going to go and see what's happening, because I expected the horse to drown, but it didn't. I could see it through the water, and it was just standing there on the seabed, which, you know, undead horse, so duh, but I think it would drown if it was activated. And I'm watching, continually trying to figure out what's going on. Nothing. So I thought, well, I better just swim a bit closer to see. And as you can see, it's still there. It's on the seabed. It's just standing there. I didn't want to get any closer in case I activated it. but that is incredible. I didn't know that could happen. Now, as far as I know, he's down there still. But we'll check someday and see. At the start of the Schoolgate Prison video, I mentioned how I wasn't feeling this wheat field here. It wasn't working for me, and I didn't know what was wrong. Now, Keith Russell left me a comment which was really helpful. He mentioned that it was a bit too slopey, and I completely agree. He thinks the fields needed to be more of a gradual slope, and that's what I was missing. That is what it is. It does need larger fields, but with a much gentler slope rather than the steep bit. He's quite right. I really appreciate it, Keith. Thank you very much. The wheat fields will come back. I'm not letting go of that idea. I want it. Definitely want it. I love my windmills dearly. But it was the terraforming part that I know's right. He's right about it. And I need to do some terraforming, because if you look here, there's a row of torches that I placed back in the first episode, I think. Those torches are there for a reason. They want to signify where I want to make a tunnel. However, before I start the terraforming, I need to know the dimensions of that tunnel, because I need to know how high I want my harbour walls. This is where the harbour is going to go. This is the edge of the town. This is where it meets the sea. This is the docks where it will all come in. But this tunnel is important to me. I'm going to build a sewer tunnel. I'm going to build it straight through here. It's a functional thing. It's going to provide water passage through here, right through my land, out the back and into the river at the back, so that I can get out to the other villages, which I will want for when I'm bringing villagers in. However, like I say, I need to know the size of this tunnel before I can do the flattening of the land and the smoothing of the land that I want for the windmill. So that's what I'm going to focus on today, is the terraforming and the tunnel. If you take a look from the top of the lookout pillar here, you can see the ragged edge of the land where we meet the coast here. All this needs fixing, and that's going to be my job for today. I'm going to make the harbour wall and the tunnel. Now, when it comes to the tunnel, I've got a very definite shape in mind. I built basically the same tunnel on a previous world. I'm aiming for a slightly rounded tunnel shape to signify the sewer pipe, the large sewer pipe. But the main function of this tunnel, as I've said, is a waterway access from the sea through to the rivers behind my lands. Therefore, a big key feature of this is the waterway through the centre, which is what those three torches across the middle signify. That's how wide the waterway is going to be. I've just put in a row of decorative blocks at the top there to signify the very top level of the harbour wall. And now I'm marking out the pipe disappearing into the land, so I'll know where to dig once I get to the land. But this tunnel is something I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed the idea of sewers, and it will be extensive. It will connect up to more and more, as you'll see as we get later into the video. My plans for it. Here I'm marking out the harbour wall. As you can see, I'm going to reclaim quite a lot of the water's edge here. As I dig the support pillars down, I've got to dig down to actual rock, whatever form of rock's below, connect it to it. There's no need for that. There's no need for that at all. That's purely something that I feel I have to do. I could just put it down on the dirt or the sand, and of course it wouldn't matter. But I do notice a little bit later on that I've been counting wrong here, which it wouldn't be a Minding video if I didn't count wrong, and I'm going to make a far bigger mistake later in the video, much bigger, something that probably takes me a real life day to fix. But this, I'm slightly out here. I've changed my mind on the spacing of the blocks, but here I'm showing you how this is where the harbour wall is going to be. So all that land that you can see there, the bit of the sea, the jagged stuff, is going to be smoothed out because I want that to be the lower area of the town. The town's always been intended to be a port, goes all the way up to the chicken coop back that way. And here's where I realise I've miscounted the walls a little bit, so I fixed those, which doesn't take too long to knock down that stuff and fix it. But I've always intended it to be a harbour. I like ports because it lets you build docks, it lets you build ships, it gives you something else to put in the town as well. It gives you sort of different landscapes. Here I'm working on the little arches that I want the harbour wall to have. It's going to consist of like a pillar, a 3-block space, and then another pillar with these upside down stairs to provide the curve. And as you can imagine, these harbour walls and then the sewer walls and the entire tunnel is going to take a lot of smooth stone brick. So I spent a lot of time smelting up cobblestone into its normal stone and then turning that into the brick. Here I'm making the first inroads into the tunnel. Oh, just coming back to it now, it seems so long ago. I spent so long digging this, but I needed to get a good idea of where the land is that I'm taking away. So I scooped everything back to the hillside, taking out all the dirt, and then cut back the stone to give me the shape of the tunnel. But as you can see, I'm still using the enchanted stone tools. They were a revelation, and I will talk a little bit more about those later. But honestly, when you've got free XP and so much lapis you don't know what to do with, you might as well enchant your tools, even if you just put efficiency 1 on them or something, just to make them work a little bit quicker. And they save me so much time. Here I'm actually working up to my first Silk Touch diamond pick. I turned the last of my diamonds into a diamond pick, made a Silk Touch pick, called it Ore Extractor, because when you're caving you want a Silk Touch pick with you, not a fortune one, a Silk Touch, so you can bring all the ore back and then fortune it. It means you can carry so much more through the caves. If you fortune it, you run out of space very, very quickly. But here I'm beginning to put down the bottom of the actual water channel there. I'm just planning it out a little bit. I've put in a few mossy bricks. I like moss around the edges to show the damp and dark areas, and dark is going to be a factor with this tunnel. I want it dark because it's a sewer tunnel. I want it pretty dingy down there. So if you'll notice, I'm using stone brick stairs and slabs as the walkway, therefore it will not be spawnable. So I can have it quite dim in there. And then I started digging the tunnel, and you have no idea what it feels like looking back on this tunnel. This tunnel is big, you'll see later. It's a really long tunnel, but it gave me massive amount of cobblestone, which I needed because I was going to fill in the back of each archway in the harbour with this. I wanted it to look like this, like the cobblestone look behind it. And so I used massive amounts filling in the harbour wall, but then of course I also needed the equal massive amounts to make the stone brick, and I dug a lot of stone. But that's roughly the idea of what I want the archways and the harbour wall itself to look like. There will be more docks coming down later. This is not necessarily the docks part, it's the harbour wall part. Now here I'd heard a zombie and I dug down a little bit as I was digging the tunnel, and I found this cave. And I believe wherever possible, when you hear zombies, you should track them down because they lead to the cave, so you can light up the cave. It will increase any sort of mob spawn in your work. But I found a couple of zombies and a creeper here, and I was trying to take it out when a skeleton got in the way. Now there I so nearly died. I would have died if it wasn't for the fact that I have enchanted my armour, and I'm pretty sure one of the pieces has got blast protection on it. I was rather lucky, but as you can see I was pretty low down, so I quickly sealed myself in to get my health back. It was quite scary, but it's definitely always worth doing because, as I say, somebody like myself who likes to build mob systems, lighting up every cave is important anyway, and it led to getting a lot of resources. got a lot of iron and copper out of this. Now here you can see I've done my usual. I made a mistake, I didn't count right, and I'd got a gap of 2 extra blocks. I had to cut down a lot of the cobble and rebuild it. And that's the second time I've made counting mistakes. It's not the worst, as I say, the worst is still to come. I'm decorating a bit of the walls as I go, putting in cracked brick and mossy brick. And here you can see I've actually encountered the tunnel up from the buried nether portal. The cobble on the right with the 2 torches on is where the ladder is that comes up out of the nether portal. I will have to move that tunnel, but that's for a later date because I do have plans for that. So for the time being it will sit in the edge of the sewer tunnel. But here you can see I'm just checking on my design, looking at it, making sure everything goes the way I want. The 2 steps at the top are providing the curve, the steps at the bottom are providing the spawn protection. And I've actually taken to using the Silk Touch pick because it saved time, and honestly I've been at this already then for several real life days, and much more to come. It was a case of, do I use the Silk Touch pick just to get the stone straight away and then I can just turn it into smooth stone brick, or do I use the enchanted stone picks and then cook it all up and take the time? I ended up doing a combination of both just to try and save some time. But for day after day it was a routine of mining smooth stone, mining cobblestone, and then placing brick blocks. As you can see already, the tunnel's quite long now, but it's about halfway maybe, if that. And the cobblestone I would build the harbour wall with, and again, even on land, I still dug down to the stone to give it foundations. It's a quirk. I apologise. It's unnecessary. It did mean like every column had more stone than it needed. But at least I know it's done right now. And as you can see, it took it for a while, but it's getting there. It's getting there. I got the cobblestone in. Anytime the tunnel crossed another cave was just a bonus. It was just a time to light up more passageways, search it for as much iron as I could get, or any resources really, but iron always is the main one. But it gave me the chance to light up every passageway, to search out every end, and here I even managed to get my first ender pearl, which was always a bonus. But the work of placing blocks and digging never ended. Hour after hour after hour I placed blocks, I dug blocks. There was slabs, there was stone brick, there was stone stairs, and I spent all my time making the ground as spawnable or non-spawnable as possible, and carrying on digging and digging down the tunnel. And it got to the point where that white light you could see at the end is not the end of the tunnel, it's the end of the render distance. It didn't go all the way, but I kept on getting more and more resources, more and more cobble, more and more smooth stone, more and more stone brick. Just a complete pattern, again and again and again. I almost went kind of nuts in one way and then zen in another. It was a very strange experience. But here I am. I came back to work on the tunnel entrance, and this was where I thought I should have done this to begin with, because while I was doing this, something terrible happened. I made the sewer entrance, and then I suddenly looked at it and I thought, what? Wait a minute, this isn't right. It's not right. It's not my design. And I looked at it, and I've got the 3 block wide channel for the water, but there should be a gutter down either side as well. There should be another row of steps on either side before the slab, before the stairs. The whole tunnel, everything I've dug, is 2 blocks too narrow. I looked at it in disbelief. I had to stand there looking at it thinking, what do I do? What do I do? I've spent days doing this, absolute real life days, probably nearly a week. I can't build it all. I can't knock it down 2 more wide and go down, can I? but in the end I thought, well, I have to. I can't leave it as it is. So I took back the beginning blocks to just sort of like look at how big the mistake was. You know, it even meant that this channel here was not deep enough. It needed to be 3 blocks deep. At the surface it was needed to be 3 blocks deep, and this block is the surface block. That's the gutter. So even the channel had to be dug deeper, which meant the block below had to be dug out. The walls had to go. I was crestfallen. I didn't know whether I could do it or not, to be honest. It was so much work. I'd done so much already, and to realise I'd made such a huge mistake, everything had to come back. It was going to be a massive undertaking to change it. I was heartbroken. You know, it just needed so much work. Every block had to come out that I'd put in. On one side I had to dig them back, you know, on 2 blocks. I nearly thought, that's it, I can't carry on. I looked at it and I thought, I've got all that to do. It nearly broke me. It really nearly broke me. It was, I'd spent so long doing it, and I thought, do I need it to have that gutter in? Do I need it? The answer, of course, was yes, I did. My brain doesn't work in a way that would let me leave it like that, so I had to bite the bullet, force myself, and start digging out the bits that I'd missed, taking back everything I'd placed, digging it back further. It was a crushing couple of days. It really was. It felt awful. You know, I'd already dug these parts, I'd already placed these blocks, and then I had to dig them up and replace them right back. But I had to do it. Just simply had to. So eventually, after another few days, it was done, and I was back to where I should have been days ago now, and I could start digging again at last. That had been really painful. Really, really painful. But at least now I had the tunnel the right way, and I was moving forward once again. And it does mean you get, you know, a fair few resources, but eventually this happened. I saw the daylight, the light at the end of the tunnel, literally, and I could open it out into the little bay at the back where this had been planned for right from the beginning. I'd put a column post up there back during episode 1, I think, when I'd got over to the cherry biome and found the cherry biome. I wanted to get right the way through, because I am going to be going getting villagers, not yet, but soonish, and I want to be able to bring them back, and the easiest way to bring them back is in boats, definitely in boats. And so this tunnel will facilitate that. It will be a water link from the ocean through to this big river at the back, come out here into this little lagoon that's just in the nestled into the hills here. That's the hills behind the big hill that my house is upon, and then you can come around there, you can see the hill with the cherry grove on, and out, and here's the river at the back that goes all the way around. It goes round that sort of like mountain with the cherry biome on, round to back to where there's a village in the distance. And this is what it was all for, is to get access to this area and allow me to be able to sail right through the land and out onto there. But now I'm going to sprint down this. This is sprinting down it. I just can't explain how long it took and how big a grind it was, and how much effort it took, and how many tools I lost count of how many pickaxes I enchanted, and the amount of materials I took out. But it was an incredible amount. It was quite the effort. I've actually later on when I start placing some andesite blocks. I place them every 16 blocks, so you can just see them on the right there. I'm beginning to place them, and I reckon that tunnel is about 22 chunks long. It's huge. But part of my design for this sewer and canal part does involve um, these andesite blocks. You'll see in a little while when I get to putting in the water why they're there. But they do help mark off distances. However, they are spawnable. They're the only part in the tunnel that really is. And so I chose to hang above those lanterns. You saw me put in the marker blocks for where the lanterns want to go, and then I started to dig out the tunnel, and here I'm making the actual soul lanterns because I don't want normal bright lanterns, I want the dimmer ones. And so I made a bunch of these, which is a bit painful with all the iron, but I keep constantly going caving and mining, and the actual dig itself provided quite a lot of resources. You'll see in just a small while. But I put chains down and put them down to make sure that the andesite, top of the andesite blocks are not spawnable, and also to highlight the areas where they are. As I say, these are every 16 blocks apart, so basically a chunk apart, the start of a chunk or something. And then I got to do what I suppose was the fun bit, which is the decoration of the place, putting in the mossy blocks where the water's all slimy and covered in lichen and stuff, and algae, putting in the cracked blocks, putting in the bits of cobble where the blocks are broken down, and this was fun. And these guys never left me alone. I had to kill so many of these. I've got about 15 banners now, I think. But as you'll see now, I'm preparing for something that's going to come a little bit later. I actually changed my mind. I was going to use the weathered blocks, but I changed my mind and let them weather themselves, but you'll see that again later. But it's back to decorating. I'm decorating the sides now where all the moss has grown on the walkways and the walls and the roof. And then when I came to the roof, I thought, let's put some vines in and have sort of like a broken piece in the roof, have a bit where the tree roots and the vines are growing down. I'm not sure how successful this is. I ended up having to put string underneath to hold it in place, and the string's a bit too visible for my liking. I'm not so sure. I don't know whether this will stay or not. I decided to live with it for a little while and see what I think. It does grow down a bit, and then I place string underneath it to lock it in place. But I enjoyed the whole designing process actually, which surprised me because it's not something I've ever really done before or enjoyed. But I am finding that with this series is that if you can just sort of like sit back and just take your time with something, you can be creative and enjoy it. Here I've decided I want a broken piece in the wall. I want a bit where the sewer pipe has collapsed, and so I dug out a bit of a wall and I started putting in slabs and stair blocks to make sure they weren't spawnable. But I wanted the rock and the dirt behind the sewer wall to be showing. And I enjoyed the whole process. It was a bit of relief and pleasure after the long hard dig, and I changed it up with a bit of smooth stone and a bit of cobble, and then once the light's gone away, then you'll see that this is a dark patch in the thing, but it's a bit where the wall of the sewer has collapsed inwards. Now here I'm going to fortune up all my resources. I stuck them all up, all the iron and then a few blocks of lapis. And then it was suddenly while I was up here, so high up, I thought, oh, that's a great view of the harbour wall there. And then I looked round at the tunnel. Now just think there, the tunnel comes through all that land. I was looking around at where it's coming and I suddenly thought, whoa, wow, the sewer tunnel starts here and cuts deep all the way through, underneath all the ground there, right the way through, going stretching all the way back, right the way back there to the lagoon in the distance. Like I say, it's about 22 chunks. It's incredible. Much bigger than I expected. But through bumping into all the caves and lighting them up as I went, I managed to get myself quite a bit of resources. I got a stack full of iron and some lapis, and as you can see here, that one stack had turned into nearly 3 stacks of iron, and the lapis was just vast amounts. I got back far more than I'd used on enchanting my tools, which was amazing. But then it was time to put the water into the water channel. That wasn't difficult at all. It was just a very long process, you know, pick up a bucket of water, move it 2 blocks along, pick it up, and then fill up the next layer as I got to that, and work my way back. Like I say, 22 chunks, so it's a lot of blocks placing, a lot of water placing, but at least I didn't have to do it all from inside the water channel. I could reach from above, so that helped with it. But it was just place water, move along, place water, move along. No problem at all, really. Then when I got to the end, it was up onto the higher level. This is the actual surface of the ocean level, river level. And this was when I had to fill in the gutters, the waterlogged stairs, and wow, I had to fill in every one on one side. It was very laborious, but it worked and it wasn't difficult. It just took time. And then I got a very pleasant surprise when I got to the other end, because I thought I had to do that all over again, but as soon as I filled in that one, of course, the water filled itself in, so it was just a case of put the first water block into each piece of guttering and it would fill itself in, so that was nice from there on. No problem at all. Then it was making the iron grates, and each andesite thing is basically it's a water gate, things to catch. You see in sewers, like, you know, for catching the leaves and the straining the water, I suppose, in a way, and things. And I wanted that one for every andesite thing. I leave the top one block open because that's the gap for my boat to fit through. I have an issue with boats. I'll come to that when I actually show you. But it used up a lot of iron, but it was worth it. I think it looks really good when you've got these iron grates in. They really bring it to life in a way. And then of course all the time I'd been over at Schoolgate Prison collecting XP and enchanting stuff meant I'd got quite a few bones, so when I needed the bone meal, not a problem. I knew exactly where to get it and bring it. I also wanted to make the ends of the pipes look a little bit different from the rest, so I found a few andesite blocks to make it look a bit prettier. But then it was just a case of swimming along the channel itself with the bone meal and making it look very well used, you know, getting the plants and everything. I will get some seagrass, I think, and put some of that in. Well, we'll see. Might get some coral or something, the odd piece, maybe the odd sea cucumber. But finally the tunnel itself was done. So with one monumental task done, I could move on to the next one, and the first job was to light up all the ground that was going to be covered, because once the harbour wall is built, this ground is going to be covered in. So I then had to put each pillar in for the harbour wall itself, and again going down to stone purely because I'm me. Had to. But I put each little archway in, which I think it makes it nicer than just leaving it straight. But it did use up another load of smooth stone brick. Even the swimming parts weren't too bad. It goes nice and easy once you've got the resources, and if it's one thing I had, it's a lot of stone after digging all that. Even with the amount I've used, I still got a lot left. Okay, so swim down, dig as far down until you hit stone, and then build up again with the smooth stone brick pillars, and try not to drown in the process. And because they're 6 blocks tall, you can just about reach to put the arches in at the top and fill the pillars back in again. So that took quite a while, but it eventually got done, as you can see from the top of the house. With the aid of my trusty little spyglass and then taking out the hood, you can actually use it a bit like a zoom feature. And there you can see now that everything's filled in with the cobble and the pillars and the smooth stone pillars, and you can see the land is underneath is all lit up. But you can see the huge task I've got ahead of me now. I'm going to have to cover all this, and I'm going to cover it 2 blocks deep as well. I'm not going to do it easily. There's the top of the tunnel. The top of the tunnel will have a layer of grass across it, but grass is the final feature. I've got to do something else first. And of course that something else is place cobble. Lots and lots of cobble. I wanted to make sure that the land is 2 blocks deep, purely for later on when you're building. You know, you don't want to dig out 1 block to place something but lower and fall right through. So I bit the bullet. I had all the stone. I had lots and lots of stone. So I covered in the entire area. I made sure everything underneath was fully lit so that it wouldn't spawn things down there. But then it took me quite a while to fill in all that, but at least it was out in the daylight for a change, and it was a relief from the tunnel. But then I had this large area underneath, and of course, while I'd got a few stacks of dirt from digging the tunnel, quite a few, nowhere near enough. But I thought, well, all this dirt under here would go to waste. So I started digging again. And I seem to always be digging in Minecraft. I quite like it. I suppose I'm a digger at heart, a miner, a tunnel builder, that sort of person. So then this was the area that I'd got now to cover. As you can see, the landscape is very, very different now, which is why I wanted you to have a look at it at the very beginning of the video, just to see how it sloped right down to the beach, and it was steep at the front and then a flat plane to the beach, whereas now I've made it much smoother out there. As I say, these guys just always, all the time. I've got a cow that I put in the chicken pen now so I can keep getting rid of the bad omen. But I wanted this area, so this is like the main part of the town, where I can build, I suppose, most of the buildings. I do want the slope because I want the viewpoint from the harbour to look up through the town and up to my house and up to the statue that's going to be on the top of the hill. But I finally got to be able to sign the sewer tunnel as complete. Kind of complete. I'll come back to that in a moment. But I finished off all the placing of the dirt and let the grass grow. The grass grew back pretty quickly, actually, rather surprisingly quickly. I'd only just finished and it was almost fully done, but I mean, I do work slowly, so maybe that's the reason. But the land looks so different now, doesn't it? Very different. It's not fully flat. It might seem it like this, but it's not when you're down there. And so now that the land was constructed and everything else, the only access I had to the sewer was down through this nether tunnel ladder there, without jumping off into the water and swimming along the water. So I decided I needed to at least put an access point into the sewer, and I decided to try and do it roughly about the middle, which would give me good access to either side of the sewer itself, plus the fact that the middle is actually not that far away from the back of my house, so it works both ways. And I decided to go with a spiral staircase, which meant, of course, digging the the thing again. I've done a lot of digging in this episode, but that's not something I mind. And I wanted it to be kind of industrial, so I thought, well, let's try using copper. Let's try it. I had been intending to do this from early on. I'd been aging some copper outside the front of my house, but I thought, well, let's try it in all its forms first of all. I'll put it down as fresh cut copper to begin with. This is the spiral going round, half block rises, so you rise quicker and faster. Um, and I thought I'll let it age while it's in there and see which stages I prefer um, the structure to look like, because I'm still not sure, so I'll probably let it all age and then decide what I want it, and then I'll maybe, scrape it off and freeze it in place with honey or something, but we'll see. That's for later. But it didn't take too long to make the spiral staircase up to the surface. It's not that far, maybe 30-40 blocks up to the surface, and it does come out right beside the nether portals ladder, which is just beside my house, as we found in the episode. And I originally decided to do a sort of like engineer's office and area, but I thought, well, to begin with, I'll just put this tunnel access in, and maybe we'll see whether it needs a bit of a civil amenities yard or something to go in there. But just like with the tunnel itself, I wanted it to be kind of dark and dingy down here, so went for the soul lanterns again. I wouldn't want that everywhere. It is a bit too dark for my taste. I like bright things, but it does give it the feeling of the dark sewer. And so that's the end of a few weeks worth of work for me. The harbour wall is finished, the sewer tunnel is finished. I'll take you through it, and as I do, notice my boat. I'm having a problem with the boat. For some reason, I cannot sail the boat in a straight line. Even with the keys, if I take my hands off the keys and leave it in a straight line, it won't go a straight line. It always like veers off to the sides. I don't know if anybody else has this problem. But this is the finished tunnel. As you can see, there are broken bits. That's the access up to the nether tunnel. And then just on the right here is where the sewer access is now that I've built. But then all the decoration in it's subtle. I think it's pretty subtle. The stuff in the water, the broken blocks on the sides, the moss. It's only if you stop to look at the places, you can see it. Here where I dug the collapsed pipe is probably the most obvious. But the whole intention was to be able to sail all the way through the land, right through back out into this river at the background, which it's done. So that was quite the grind. It really was. It really was. Thank you for sticking with me if you stuck with me this long. I really do appreciate it, and all that's left for me to say is, as usual, I've been Mindfiend. You guys, as always, have been wonderful. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Bye for now.